A few years ago, the engine in my truck developed an issue and it cost me $6,000 to resolve. I put that cost on my credit card and I had 30 days to work out how I was going to pay for it. It was then I realized I had no safety net. All I had was a maxed out credit card and that sinking feeling in my stomach. Since then, I've realized that this is not an uncommon scenario. More and more people are living paycheck to paycheck and being absolutely tanked by an unexpected emergency. And in my personal finance education, I discovered the benefits of an emergency fund. And in these uncertain times, the worth of an emergency fund is more valuable than ever before. In this short video, I'm going to show you all the benefits of an emergency fund, including a couple I didn't realize myself. I'm also going to show you how to put one together. But first, let's talk about what it's actually for. Understanding the emergency fund. Now, at the fundamental level, an emergency fund is effectively a stash of money that you put aside for emergencies and unexpected expenses. Everyday things like car problems, medical emergencies, property maintenance, and even sudden unemployment. And unless you've been living in a cave recently, you'll understand that these days, these emergencies come up more often than ever before. And we know the next emergency or unexpected expense is just around the corner. Now, what the emergency fund is not for is paying for vacations, shopping trips, or pampering yourself. The emergency fund is strictly for emergencies, and we need to treat it as such if we're going to improve our financial position. Now, in my research, most financial advisors would say between 3 to 6 months of life expenses should be in the emergency fund. But in recent years, some have gone further and say you should have between 6 and 12 months of life expenses stashed away in your emergency fund. Recent economic uncertainties have made people feel more cautious and definitely more vulnerable to financial emergencies. Now, saving that amount of money can seem daunting to say the least. 4 years ago, the only thing I'd ever saved for before was a Disney trip, and that was tough in itself. Now expected to save 3 to 6 months of life expenses or more can leave you feeling overwhelmed and maybe even give up before you started. So here's an idea that I did myself 4 years ago to make the goal attainable. Save $1,000. Now that's a lot less stress and a far more attainable goal that you can work towards. This small amount can be used to cover small emergencies, and the most important thing is it will set the standard and get you into a good new habit. And if, like me, you've never saved before, you might not know where to start or how much you should put aside. And for some, $1,000 will still be a large amount of money and seem like a too high a target. Even $20 a week from your checking account to your savings account will build up over time. And as you'll discover, just starting to do that will be the most powerful thing you can do. Not only will you start building your fund, but you'll start changing your mindset too. It's a new financial habit that will help you change your life. And you know what? We can make it even easier. Budgeting for your emergency fund. By creating a budget for your salary, you can send your money to where it needs to be. Starting a budget doesn't have to be difficult. In fact, it's easy. All you have to do is track your income and your expenses and work out where you can do some small cutbacks. This could be easy things like dining out a little less, buying less consumer products, watching a less little TV, and so on. We all know and understand doing anything worthwhile will take a little sacrifice and a bit of time and effort. That's the price we're going to pay, to be less stressed about money, to be more control of our finances, and to have a brighter future. And with your savings from cutting back, you can direct those straight into your emergency fund. Make it easy on yourself and set up a direct deposit from your checking account to your savings account. That way you don't need to remember. You won't even need to think about it. But your emergency fund is building every time you're getting paid. Remember, like most things in life, consistency is key. Getting better at sports for a skill, consistency. Getting healthy or losing weight, consistency. And your emergency fund is just the same. Small contributions over time will build into a significant amount. And just like covering your mortgage, paying your bills, and putting gas in your car, contributing to your emergency fund will just be another expense that has to be done. But thanks for joining us today. I appreciate you. If you find some value to today's video, perhaps give me a thumbs up and maybe even join the channel. I'd love to have you aboard. Now, we're back to the video. The psychology of saving. Now, the reason that most people struggle with saving, me included up until 4 years ago, is that it's not just a financial challenge, it's a psychological one. Most people will naturally prioritize gratification and spending money over long-term security. Rather than taking the money and putting it to work for them, they'll spend it on vacations and consumer products as a reward for working so hard. This is normal, and it's normal because most people do it. Over 70% of Americans are one paycheck away from living on their credit card. Living from paycheck to paycheck is a symptom of bad financial habits and a lack of financial planning. It's a psychological barrier, and it's one that we need to get past. We need to diminish it, and there's certain ways we can do that. Imagine the real and solid relief of having an emergency fund when the next emergency comes running at you, knowing you have funds aside to make it go away. That is the solid peace of mind the emergency fund will give you. The ability to have a good night's sleep, not worrying about where the next dollar is going to come from. This visualization and conceptualization. You can visualize and conceptualize these feelings to motivate you to save consistently. Once you believe you can have that feeling and you can have less financial worries, it could be a powerful motivator. And seeing tangible results, seeing your emergency fund grow and your financial stress come down, you're likely to be motivated to increase your contributions. The worth and the value of your emergency fund will grow, and so too will its priority in your life. Where to keep your fund? Now, putting your contributions in a separate savings account while you're building it is really important. Doing that will minimize the risk of you being tempted to spend it and will also give it space away from other accounts. Now, when you're ready, you can take your fund out of the savings account and keep it somewhere accessible, but not too easy that you're tempted to use it. Now, you can consider a high yield savings account or a money market account. It's accessible when an emergency does turn up, but in the meantime, it can earn some interest while it's parked. The one thing I did learn in the early days is not to tie up the emergency fund in investments, even when the return is high. That return potential can always turn into a loss, and investments are not always liquid. You may not have full accessibility to the cash. The goal, after all, is security and accessibility. And let's face it, if you budget your salary and you have a financial plan, you should already have money to invest. Your emergency fund already has a very important purpose and it needs to be kept liquid. When to use your emergency fund? Now, this was a really important part of finally having an emergency fund for myself. What would actually constitute as an emergency? How would I define that? And therefore, how would I use the fund? Well, first of all, I did the easy thing and discounted all the things I wouldn't use it for, which would be shopping, vacation, gifts for me, and gifts for other people. I also went on to discount life expenses, things like rent or mortgage, gas, and expenses. After all, it took me a long time to put together this emergency fund, so I was determined not to misuse it. So I made it my emergency fund, property emergencies, medical expenses, vehicle repairs, and a sudden lack of salary. Now these would qualify for its use, and not much else. Now, by having very clear criteria, you'll protect your fund for genuine emergencies. And having this very clear definition really helped me with the rest of my salary so I could budget for everything in my life. Going beyond the basics. Now, once you finally have your 3 to 6 months of life expenses in your emergency fund, you may want to consider expanding it if you have longer periods of unemployment. Now, for me, being a self-employed workaholic, I was comfortable having 3 to 6 months of money put aside. After all, I work 7 days a week in one way or another, and I have no plans to retire. But for some people, where extended periods of unemployment could be a thing, 6 to 12 months of life expenses could give you real peace of mind. Some job markets are much more volatile than others, and some people have more dependents. All these things need to be considered and be part of your long-term plan. Now, your emergency fund can take a year or two to grow, or even more. And when you get to that financial goal, you may wish to stop or continue to build it even bigger. It all comes down to your employment status, your income, and your dependents. So give it some thought. Emotional benefit. Now, beyond the financial security and the peace of mind, your emergency fund can give you emotional stability as well. Having it there ready to deploy when you need it will reduce your anxiety and stress around finances and money. And if you've suffered from those in the past, you know just how much of a negative impact they can make on your life. Your emergency fund will empower you and allow you to make financial decisions with confidence rather than desperation. And being confident, I guarantee you're going to make far better financial decisions for yourself and your family. This emotional resilience will impact all areas of your life in a big positive way. Having that emergency fund at full capacity will bring you emotional well-being and confidence. For me, this is the greatest benefit of an emergency fund, particularly now in such uncertain times. The secret no one tells you. Now, this is the secret that nobody tells you about having an emergency fund. It's not the money you have on the sidelines. It's a complete mindset change you have while you're building that fund. It's the empowerment your emergency fund will give you to take control of your financial future. By making that declaration, you're owning it and taking control of something that's held you back and made you unhappy. Having that emergency fund ready to deploy will minimize your financial stress. Most people will never get to this stage of personal finance and take responsibility. But now you know even the smallest step can bring you huge returns and lead to a significant change. Your future self will thank you, and your health and mental health will be grateful too. And if you feel you can improve your budgeting and get your salary to work for you even more, then watch this video right here. I'm going to take you through my payday routine in the hopes it can help you build yours and your emergency fund. In my experience, getting that payday routine right was critical to everything else. I'll see you there.